So it's 2025 and I'm still retro gaming. Why is that? I think in the words of every generation that's ever come before us, things were just better back in the day. But seriously though, what is it about these old games? So in the last month, I've exclusively been playing Grand Prix 2, Grand Prix 4 and Richard Burns Rally. That's it. Nothing else has got to run on my modern rig that I've spent all this money on to run these modern high-end simulators. And those games came out in order in 1996, 2002 and 2004. The obvious thing of course is just simply nostalgia. It takes you back to when you're, well for me, a young teenager. Grand Prix 2 came out, playing that on a keyboard and mouse, then a joystick, and then eventually a steering wheel. Just wasted many hours on the Jeff Crammon Grand Prix series and the IndyCar series and the NASCAR series from Papyrus. Those were the first games that I got into massively. I was a huge motorsport fan when I was a kid. And of course those games let you run away into the world of motorsport, pretend you're an actual driver. So there is that just very simple nostalgia thing, like I said. But everything in hindsight and looking at it with nostalgia, everything seems better. But at the end of the day, these are racing simulators, just like your modern stuff, like your R Factor 2, your iRacing, your Seto series, whatever it is you play, Automobilista. They're still racing simulators, but there's just something intangible, just inherently more engaging with these old games. And I think a lot of that has to do with there was a physical connection with the games back in the day. You know, you might see a game in a magazine. There was no online stuff, of course. The hype was basically through magazines and word of mouth. You go and have to physically line up at the shop for your game, and then you got that box. You know, these games had the beautiful box art. You flip it over, there'd be screenshots of the game. You look at the specs and say, could my 486 processor run this? Could my Pentium processor run this? Did I need to do an upgrade? And then you get home, you'd crack the box open. You had that physical, sometimes a floppy drive or a CD-ROM drive. And the manuals, the booklets were just impeccable. I mean, the Grand Prix manuals that you got with the games was like a work of art. If people have those sort of sitting around, they're probably worth an absolute mint. So there was that, I said, physical connection with the game. Whereas these days, you buy a game on Steam, you don't like it for, you know, probably some minor reason, you refund it. So you've lost that connection with the game that we used to have, and that's I think a huge part of these games. Not talking just racing simulator, I'm talking just games in general. There was that physical connection, the fact you had to go and line up for your favourite game. People used to line up at midnight or whatever for the games when they came out. So you just can't beat that connection with the game. You do not have that these days. I think the other big thing, that games back then were also finished when they came out. They were ready to go. Yes, you got some update patches sometimes to fix some minor things, but the game you brought was finished. You weren't a beta tester for a game. There was no early access. That's a big thing for people these days. They like to whinge about, but they're putting their money down. Which again, no one forced you to buy those early access games, but they are early access. And you got to understand what that means. Back then, these games were finished. I think that's a huge thing. We had a complete game. Look at this game, for example, Grand Prix 4. I mean, the graphics, I swear to God, the graphics have got worse over the years as technology's gotten better. This is, I said 2002, and this is incredible. The amount of detail in the circuit here. And I think it looks good. Looks good for an old game. I think these days developers can fool people with 4K ray tracing, DLSS, all this sort of AI stuff. Great technology, and it is absolutely fantastic, but also just think the developers back in the day just used the available hardware better. I think they just took advantage of what they had and they sort of maxed out that hardware. Whereas these days, like I said, it's a lot of it's AI trickery and I said DLSS, that sort of stuff. There's trickery involved to get the graphics looking the way they are, and don't get me wrong, today's games look absolutely incredible. I mean, Automobilista, sensational looking game. Assetto Corsa with all the Soul and CSP mods, again, incredible. But there's just something, a rawness about this that you just don't get these days. I think also they were hardcore. We're talking about racing simulators again now, not games in general, but these things were supposed to be brutally hard. And the Grand Prix series was hard. Richard Burns Rally, like I always talk about, still for me, Richard Burns Rally is the greatest simulator, full stop. Nothing's come close. Even today, in its current form, with the Hungarians keeping it alive, it is the best simulator. Tyre physics, the way it works on all sorts of surfaces, snow, gravel, tarmac, the different types of surfaces on there. The suspension physics. I said nothing's come close. And that itself is a 20-year-old rally game, and I've played all the Dirt series, all the Colin McRae series, WRC. Rich RBR is absolutely the best. Which is a shame in many ways that games that cater for such a wide audience these days. That hardcore element's definitely gone. I think the F1 series is a perfect example of that. I think that's a classic. You know, we talk about the word simcade, which I do sort of hate, but it sort of describes the F1 series pretty perfectly. It's catered for too many people, and games that come out on console and on PC have to cater for a wide range of people. Especially on consoles, you've got kids that are, you know, 9 or 10 years old playing it, right through to people my age and a lot older. So you've got many crowds you've got to cater for, and when you cater for that many people, you cannot make a hardcore simulator because it won't sell. I mean, I know back in the day they'll worry about sales figures, of course, so there still have to be a fun element to the game, but it was hardcore, and Richard Burns Rally is a perfect example of that. Just super hardcore game that probably didn't sell the best back in the day, but my god, if you wanted a rally simulator, that was it. And this old Hockenheim, how good. And back in the day, this would have killed the PC. Would have had to turn some of these tree details down. There's a shortcut on the keyboard to cycle through the detail levels. Because with this many trees being rendered, an absolute killer for frame rates. Yeah, tell me what you think. If you're an old gamer like me, I truly believe that these old games are better than the new games. I think they're more engaging is what it is. They're obviously not better looking. Obviously the physics have come a long way. You've got laser scan circuits now, you know, sim racing games. All that sort of stuff is fantastic. And obviously in terms of Formula 1, if you want the best F1 experience on a PC, you get on a Assetto Corsa, you grab the VRC Formula Alpha 2024, and that thing is absolutely mental with its setup options and the way it drives. That is, yeah, the top-notch F1 experience. But I'm still not as engaged in that car as I am in a Grand Prix 2 or a Grand Prix 4. There's just something about it that just grabs you. Maybe got to be a certain age to appreciate that comment, but let me know what you think. What's your favourite retro game? Are games better in general back in the day? And as always, thank you very much for watching.